At the outset, I would like to thank the Takshashila Institution for inviting me here. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. In this session, there were some questions which was raised, and I will try to address these questions. First was that, is there a requirement of anything more beyond the joint operating centers? Now, to my mind, there are a number of platforms at present to facilitate information sharing among various stakeholders, and some of these are, there is something called the Lead Intelligence Agency meeting, which are organized by the Coast Guard every month. The purpose of the meeting is to share intelligence and information among the concerned agencies. The second is a security and intelligence meeting, which are conducted by Port Authority as well as State Maritime Board by calling representatives from local police, IB, Coast Guard, and Navy, and it is also held every month. In addition to this, there are a number of coastal security centers operated by the Coast Guard at regional, state, and area levels, where all inputs regarding coastal security operations and exercises are analyzed and shared for better coordination among the agencies involved in coastal security. Similar centers, called the state and district control rooms, have also been established by concerned coastal security states and union territories, which share information which are available to them. And lastly, we have the multi-agency center and subsidiary multi-agency centers that are operational at the center as well as in all the states, wherein intelligence are gathered, analyzed, shared, and discussed by all the concerned agencies. So you can see that there are a number of platforms wherein various stakeholders can interact with each other and they can share intelligence. But the problem, however, arises from the fact that in most of the cases, flow of intelligence or information is not lateral among the organization, but they are hierarchical, which means that once the field agent gathers information, he sends up to his boss, and then his boss sends it to his counterpart in other organization, and then that information flows down to the nodal authority. Now, these nodal authorities or agents who many a times are involved in or many a times present in the intelligence gathering meetings or intelligence sharing meetings may or may not have the authority to share whatever information or intelligence he has in these meetings. And many a times people lament that these information or intelligence sharing meetings are becoming more like an information and intelligence seeking meeting rather than intelligence and information sharing meetings. And of course, we do have the problem of turf wars amongst the organizations, and many a times they withheld intelligence to score brownie points. The question is there a need for a central marine police force? Now, as you know that the decision to consider a proposal for establishing a central marine police force was first propounded in a review meeting on coastal security, which was organized by Ministry of Home Affairs in Mumbai on 16th of June this year. Now, the suggestion was raised by the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, and this suggestion was supported by almost all the coastal states and union territories who demanded that there should be a centrally funded marine police. But this suggestion for raising a central police is not a new one, and we know that in the report on coastal security, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs had recommended that the Ministry of Home Affairs should seriously consider the proposal of raising a Marine India Reserve Battalion. Now, what is the nature and structure of the Central Marine Police Force if it were to be raised? Now, as far as the structure and nature is concerned, it is still not clear. But if you look at the recommendation of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs, it had said that the State Marine Police Force must be a dedicated force without interchangeability with the civil police. It further suggested that the Marine Battalion should comprise of 1,000 to 2,000 personnel on the lines of Crocodile Force, which has been raised by the BSF in Gujarat. The rationale for a permanent cadre stems from the fact that At present, the Marine Police is drawn from the regular civil police, and after a deputation of 3 to 5 years, they return to their parent cadre, and as a result of which, there is a shortage of manpower in Marine Police. Now, given this situation, what are the alternate models for raising a Central Marine Police Force? We have two models. One is CRPF, and the second is India Reserve Battalion. Now, as far as CRPF is concerned, there is a problem because we know that the CRPF is deployed for a limited period of time to maintain law and order on the request of the state governments. Moreover, although the force have the power to arrest, they do not have investigation and prosecution power. This means that the CRPF type of force do not meet the criteria of a permanent and dedicated force and a force with investigation and prosecution power. Then we are left with something called the India Reserve Battalion. Now, there is also a problem because the force is partially funded by the center, a fact which might not be welcomed by the coastal states and the union territories, given the fact that they had been demanding that it should be fully funded by the center. Also, we know that the state governments have not been quite forthcoming or not enthusiastic in implementing the coastal security scheme. And even if these India Reserve battalions are attached to the state governments, the problems will not be solved, to my mind. Now, what is the reason for the demand for Central Marine Police Force? The main reason for demand for establishing the Central Marine Police Force by the states is ostensibly to address the shortfall of manpower in coastal police station. It is observed that while all the state and central agencies engaged in coastal security face the problem of shortage of manpower, the Marine Police is the most affected among them. And we know that under the coastal security scheme, the Marine Police was established, and it was also mandated that all the coastal state and the union territories will sanction adequate executive and technical manpower to man coastal police stations as well as carry out coastal security operations. Unfortunately, many states did not sanction the stipulated number of posts for coastal police stations. In places where posts are announced, the state administrations find it difficult to recruit personnel as there are either no takers for the job owing to the high risk involved, or the persons with required qualifications were not found, as a result of which the post remained vacant. The issue is more severe in the case of technical posts, as it is difficult to find people with technical expertise to operate and maintain boats. Although fishermen having the knowledge to handle the boats were preferred, but because of the lack of specified educational qualifications among the fishermen, they never get selected in these examinations. Now, in order to address this problem, a scheme to recruit retired Navy and Coast Guard personnel in the technical post was launched. But as of today, we can say that it is the success rate as far as this scheme is concerned is extremely low. While in some coastal states and union territories, recruitment of Coast Guard and Navy personnel did take place, but the problem was that of retention of these personnel. Most of these ex-naval and ex-Coast Guard personnel left the job of Marine Police, complaining that the rank and remuneration given to them were not adequate. While finding suitable persons for Marine Police is a genuine problem that the coastal states and union territories face presently, the very suggestion for raising a Central Marine Police Force reflects the reluctance of the coastal states and union territories to shoulder the responsibility of coastal security. And a telling example is the reluctance in the uneven implementation of coastal security scheme introduced by the union government. The coastal states and union territories also justify their apathy, citing that they do not have adequate resources to raise additional manpower, as well as for functioning and operation of the the patrolling boats, etc. They also do not perceive any kind of threats from the sea. They even argue that the coastal security is a responsibility which should be shouldered by the center entirely. Now, given the lackadaisical attitude of the state governments toward coastal security, and given the poor performance of the marine police across all the coastal states and union territories, prudence dictates that the agencies of state government should not be entrusted with the responsibility of patrolling the coastal waters. However, creating a new organization such as the Central Marine Police Force is not a solution either. Because the Central Marine Police Force would not only add another agency to the already crowded coastal security architecture, but it would also introduce problems of coordination and turf war. So what is the way ahead? Raising a new Central Marine Police Force and wasting resources on their training and equipment is also neither necessary nor advisable, given that the country already had a central organization to protect the coast, and this is the Indian Coast Guard. The duties and functions of the Indian Coast Guard include, among other things, providing for safety and protection of offshore installations, protecting fishermen, and assisting concerned authorities in anti-smuggling operations. Following the 2008 terrorist attacks in Mumbai, the Coast Guard has also been given the additional responsibility of coastal security in territorial waters, including the areas patrolled by the Marine Police. Thus, the Coast Guard not only has the required mandate, but also the ability to shoulder the responsibility of coastal security. All it requires is further strengthening with required assets and manpower to patrol the coastal and shallow waters. And the third question is, what could be done to overcome the challenge of multiplicity of authorities? It is often argued that the coastal security is a shared responsibility because the maritime domain is such that it makes it difficult for a single agency to tackle all the seaborne threats and challenges. But the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs is of the opinion that a clear hierarchy of command at national level should be established so that the responsibility for commission and omission during an emergency situation could be fixed. In this regard, it is suggested that in addition to giving the Coast Guard the overall responsibility of coastal security, a National Commission on Border and Coastal Security should be constituted, which would formulate policies for addressing persistent and emergent threats in the country's borders and coasts, as well as ensure smooth coordination between all the concerned agencies dealing with coastal security. Thank you.